Now, this morning I was listening to LBC just by chance, and I came across an interview that Chris Heaton-Harris gave. He'd already given interviews this morning on the telly, and he's somebody I know, and I respect him. But the interview he gave on LBC with Nick Ferrari was absurd, and I found it particularly galling because in his free time he's a professional football referee. And he should know, and I'm going to read from a blog about football by Hamed Ovaisi. And he says football players and officials are prohibited from gambling on any aspect of football matches or competitions according to the Football Association's rules. This includes insider trading, which refers to using non-public information to gain an advantage in betting or other financial activities. If a player is found to have breached the FA's rules on gambling, they could face severe sanctions, including fines, suspensions, or even being banned from football altogether. People like Joey Barton, who came up in my feed the other day, Ivan Toney, I'm not sure who Ivan Toney is, but he's a Brentford striker. I almost read that as Brentford streaker, but that's a much older fashion. And Brentford striker is not clear, it says here, whether he had inside information or whether he was simply betting on matches without insider knowledge. But it's against the rules. It's not necessarily against the law. The law is about insider information. But there should be a general rule that prohibits politicians from placing bets on politics. It cheapens the image. And so although three people one person has been suspended and two people have taken leave of absence, they are not the people who are actively on the cutting edge of politics. They're not the people who are seeking a seat. The two people who are seeking a seat are still out canvassing, and that I find extraordinary, lax, and wrong. And I don't think it's about. It may be about a legality, a legal issue, but I think much more it's about a moral issue. And I think Chris Heaton-Harris is wrong in the interview that he gives. Listen to the interview here.
The Prime Minister's anger was apparent when, of course, this story broke.
I'll put up a picture of Chris Heaton-Harris to make it more entertaining.
The party pretty speedily. One candidate, Craig Williams, has admitted he did it and he's made a mistake. Why is he still standing?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's both a principal point and a practical point there. Firstly, he said, I believe the quote was a few weeks before, that needs to be determined as to whether he actually had prior knowledge, because the whole point of this is whether you had knowledge of the data or not, which is what the Gambling Commission are investigating.
But he's admitted he made a mistake and he's apologised for it, which surely indicates...
Yeah.
So why is he still in the party?
Not quite until the Gambling Commission say exactly this. The answer is not quite, and they are independent of us.
So even though the man himself admits it, the Conservatives still have to wait for the Gambling Commission to underscore what the man himself says. Is that right?
No. So he said he made a bet, and that was a mistake. We don't know, and I don't believe anybody does know. Maybe the Gambling Commission do, but. And they have said they're not naming people and they're not going to comment on ongoing investigations themselves. But we don't know whether he did that with prior knowledge or whether that was just a hunch or whatever. And so until that comes to be true, or be found out, we don't know.
There we are. I'm fundamentally disappointed in Chris, and I will take it up with him if I get an opportunity. But he says that it's about whether or not we know if there was prior knowledge, if there was insider knowledge, at what point Craig Williams, who has admitted that he made a mistake, placed his bet. But he says nobody knows. There is one person who knows. There is one person who knows, and it's not dependent on the Gambling Commission's investigation. That person who knows is Craig Williams. So has the Conservative Party not asked Craig Williams? Chris Heaton-Harris was the Chief Whip. He knows how these things are done. You bring somebody into the office and you say, did you do it? And then you hold them to account. If he says he didn't do it, then everybody can go out to the news and say, this man says he didn't do it. But nobody's doing that. They're hiding behind this convention that there is an investigation. There is also a convention that the people who are standing for Parliament are honourable members. That is why when they are elected, they are called the honourable member for blah, blah, blah. There is nothing honourable in somebody who says, I won't enlarge. There's just an inadequacy. So Craig Williams is the inadequate member that won't enlarge and that won't specify whether or not he's honourable and that won't tell us whether or not he had insider information, but says that he made a mistake. Well, as far as I know, although I think it should be a rule that politicians don't make bets about political things, don't cheapen the political dialogue by going down to the betting office and making a bet about who's going to win the next vote. But I think it should be in the rules that you don't do that. But it's not in the rules. So I made a mistake. What's the mistake? What's the mistake? Making a bet? There's no mistake in making a bet. It's foolish. It's silly. He's been found out making a bet, looking stupid. But wasn't it Rishi Sunak who was being interviewed by Piers Morgan and asked to make a bet? Silly. And he should have made the point that you don't make cheap bets about serious politics because they affect people's lives. He didn't do that. He took the bet. So is Craig Williams held to a higher standard morally than Rishi Sunak? I made a mistake. Rishi Sunak should be saying he made a mistake too. And Rishi Sunak didn't honour the bet when it came time to pay, if I remember correctly. So I think there's a mismatch here. To admit you made a mistake, the mistake has to be real. Not to enlarge is, I don't know, some sort of physical manifestation of shame, but Craig Williams, I don't think he understands the concept of honour. And I think Chris Heaton-Harris is absolutely wrong to prevaricate and to attempt to defend this dishonourable and scurrilous behaviour.